Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zenker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I always have special guests, interesting people to help you to think and sometimes to spark something new in you. Today, I'm really excited. We've got an author on the beat right now. Rachel Martin is on the beat, really out there signing it on Good Morning America and all of these different places and signing books at bookstores. And Rachel believes in the power of the human spirit to overcome, to thrive, to find deep joy. And because of that, she pours out her heart via these platforms. She's a writer behind the site findingjoy.net, which is actually where I found her. I loved one of her posts and I started to follow. And when I said, hey, you got to come on to this show. And she's the author of Get Your Spark Back, which just released, which is what I said she's on the tour for, Mom Enough, and The Brave Art of Motherhood, and the founding partner in Audience Industries, a company designed to train, equip entrepreneurs in their ventures. Her articles have been translated in over 25 languages, and her site reaches millions of visitors per month. And she has a robust, engaged Facebook community. She's been featured on The Today Show, Good Morning America, NPR, Huffington Post, Tiny Buddha, iVillage, and. The list actually does go on, but I'm going to stop there. And without further ado, welcome to the show.
I'm super excited to be here. And I love that you said you had interesting guests because I thought, ooh, that's a cool descriptor.
Well, it would be not great if I had uninteresting people, right?
Very true.
Who would want to listen to boring people? Hey, everybody, I have the best, most boring person today.
Right.
You're going to listen to.
But we could make it fun, right?
We already are.
We are. That's so good.
I love that in your bio description there that you say that you love the human spirit. And you know what's funny? I felt as soon as I talked to you and I read some of your stuff, it's one of the things that I often say too, is that I'm in love with the human spirit. So it's funny that you use that same language. We're sisters.
We're kindred spirits right there. I love the term, that human spirit. I think that it's like the soul, the spirit. It's that part of us that has that drive in us to do these adventures and to try new things. And it's the part of us that's the most alive in life. And you know when somebody, it's kind of like they're on fire. You can see it. And I love to inspire people to go after it because I know life is short. I once heard this analogy about time, that it's the only commodity that we all have, but we don't know how much of it we have. And that's just sunk in so deeply. I was like, that's why I love the human spirit, because when we fully go into it and sink into it, we use that time. We go after it. We're so grateful for it. Even with what happened in the time previous and prior, we want to use the time in front of us to thrive, to find that joy, to live that life.
That's what I love too, is seeing what people come up with. So many various different areas of expertise. People have skills and how they put them together to create magic, right? And how they overcome in the past, like that they keep moving through. Like I've heard some really incredible stories of people with such resiliency. And it's like, where does that come from?
Right. That resiliency, I think that we all have it. We've got these moments. Sometimes we forget about it. And then when we're pushed to our limits, it emerges. And there's these moments in the future where we think, well, I'm not that strong. And I'd like to remind people, think back. There's part of you that's experienced this, that knows how to tap into that emotion. And the resiliency, to me, it's why we love all the underdog stories. We go to them for inspiration. I love that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, because of the resiliency in it, in believing and having faith in something that it might not even seem logical to anybody else. And that celebration, it's worldwide. The celebration of that human spirit.
Absolutely. One of my favorite movies, and then we'll come back to talking about your book, but just you mentioned movie or whatever.
Right.
Did you ever see Will Smith's Collateral Beauty?
No, if I have. I don't, maybe, but it's not popping in right away. So now I'm going to write it down because of one.
I don't know why, but I mean, I do sort of know why, because it has some very interesting themes in there. Will Smith is an architect, or I forget what the business is that he's doing. But anyway, he loses a child and he breaks down. And his partners and the people around him having a breakdown there, well, I don't want to tell you the story, but basically see it because it's him going through this incredible journey that we do when we're going through trauma or impossible situations, and his experience and interaction with love, time, and death.
Okay, I have it written down and a star.
And I won't say more than that, but very interesting. Spark, your new book that just come out, the Get Your Spark Back. You know, we talked about, I mentioned it in the beginning, sort of the spark. Where does that originate from, getting your spark back?
For me, I went through my own journey of losing that spark. And I like to call even the spark a level deeper than the spirit, like the soul of who you are. It's who you were created to be. That so often the world, we put it, we hide it. We think we're too much. It's too risky. It's like people will say, who does she think she is? Or it's the expectations. And it's the part of us that dying and wanting to be heard. But we're like, I don't know about that. I have to take the logical, the practical route. And for me, I knew I had kind of lost it. I went through 15 years ago, unhealthy marriage, divorce, severe financial crisis. And then I went through single mom years and all of that. And then I got to this place where life seemed like, okay, everything should be good. And then I was like, who am I now? What's next? How do I deal with all of this stuff? Where does it fit in my story? And how do I move forward? And it happened to coincide with COVID and the pandemic. And I think a lot of us had those moments of, wow, normal can be taken away. And now what do I do next? I don't want to go back to doing how it was, but how do I move forward? And in that process, that was what I set out to do. And my readers would start to say they saw my spark come back. They saw this like vivaciousness, the joy part coming back. And they would email me saying, well, how do I get my spark back?
How did they see it? Like in the way that you were posting, or like how was that coming across?
I think it was the way I was posting. They would start to see this energy return. What happened was my site kept growing and it just exploded during COVID. We went at one point, about 300,000 people liked the page within 6 or 7 months. Very, very rapidly it grew because I think everybody was home. So they're looking for inspiration.
Looking for good people.
And so a lot of people started giving me a lot of advice, because once I got to 1 million people there, it became a lot to manage. I knew I had to figure out, how am I going to do this and keep growing and doing stuff. And the advice, while it was really beautiful, became chatter to me, became noise. And I lost my own footing. I describe it as being in a fog. The readers saw me going through this process of, I feel like I'm in a fog. I feel like all of that. And it was the same time as COVID. We're all in this, like, what's the fog? And then gradually I started to write about that the fog was lifting. There was this clarity, this North Star, and they saw me start to do things that to them were like, oh my goodness, how is she doing that? I mean, I ran 1,000 miles in 2022. As part of that journey, I just kept pushing.
So that was a goal to run 1,000 miles?
It was.
Kept running and it turned into 1,000 miles?
Well, my brother liked to call me Forrest Gump, but no, I wasn't Forrest Gump. It started as a goal to run 899 miles, the distance between my driveway in Nashville to my parents' driveway in Minneapolis. And the goal was there. I was already running, but that goal was there because COVID freaked me out. And I thought I needed to prove to my brain, if everything else kept going great like that, I could get from my house to my parents. I could see them again because I could walk, I could run. That's the goal. And then about a couple months into it, I had to run about 3 miles a day. And my husband, I got ahead of schedule. And then my husband said, what if you ran 1,000 miles? And I'm like, I can't do that. It's 101 miles difference, but it was interesting. Right. And he said, well, have you figured out the difference? I did the math and it was, I had to run 0.3 more miles a day. And it was mind blowing. Like how those
That is
small
mind
micro
blowing.
changes.
I
Yeah.
want
change it.
everybody who's listening, I want them to just take that in for a minute,
Yeah.
that upping the goal to what seemed like it was impossible, when you break it down into its smallest pieces, it was insignificant.
Right. What
That
happened
is so
because
cool.
of that? It was very cool. It meant taking a left out of my driveway and going around the block. Well, the lesson I learned in that process, plus the book came to me during it, was I started looking for tenths, 0.10 of a mile, because there's a cul-de-sac right by my house. And I realized if I run the cul-de-sac every day when I got back, after 10 days, I would get a mile without even realizing I got a mile. But if I was to say I'm going to run an extra mile, I can't do it. And I really started looking for that 10%. How can I do this? I would run driveways. I'd find cul-de-sacs, because then it became fun, that little bit extra. And it was so motivating for me. And that's what readers started to see. That's what they started to hear. I'd start talking about the power of 10% and running or breaking out of uncomfortable.
Just taking some notes here. That's cool. I really think that's powerful for people to think about, because I'm also somebody who sets big goals. I'm setting a big goal right now. Like, I'm going for the New York Times bestseller list. And I know everybody's like, oh, that's impossible. You're not going to get that. You never even know what they decide to do it. And I'm like, maybe.
Right. Proud of
Go
you.
big or go home, right? I live once.
Right.
And if I have a message that I feel passionate about, then I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to figure it out. And I did a lot of things wrong that I realized up until this point. So maybe it won't be this time, but maybe it will, right? And if we don't go for it, then we're not going to get it. But like you said, it breaks down into much smaller pieces when you give yourself that runway.
It's the micro decisions.
Runway.
Yeah, that's good. The run. I know that's good. There's actually a race that's on our runway here in Nashville. I'm like, it's too flat. I can't do it. But those micro decisions, the goal, I reference in the book Randy Pausch, and he did the last lecture, and he talks about in the last lecture, basically there's these brick walls or speed bumps that people come up to. And the goal, most people think it's a place where I have to stop. Oh, I should stop. It's too tricky. And he said, really, the successful people are the ones that see the speed bump and figure out how to get around it and to push through. And that for me has been my philosophy for the last 10 years, for sure, is about, even now, you and I are both in the midst of a book launch and book campaign. There's probably 1 million speed bumps every single day that we face. And it's the courage to allow yourself to feel the emotion of the speed bump, feel the whatever it is, and then to move beyond it.
Learn just keep moving through it, right?
Just keep,
I call these moments reset moments.
Right.
Moments where we recognize that that maybe we need a new path. Maybe we do need to go around it. Maybe we need to go over it, but we also need to evaluate what our options are. And sometimes if we are moving too fast, we don't see the options. We may jump too quickly as to which path. I call them it's part of what I call a reset mindset, is just approaching things kind of like you're saying, from that sort of curious, open kind of place, pushing those boundaries, but also being very intentional about how you're doing it.
I like that because I call it the art of wondering. We tell our kids, I've got teenagers now, but when they were little, they would wonder all the time. Why is the sky blue? Why is it like that? And sometimes as adults, we forget that art of wondering. We forget to ask, well, why am I even doing it this way? Why am I feeling that emotion? Why am I assuming that's the result? And I love when you just ask that simple question, because it takes the pressure off of needing to know the specific answer. It opens the dialogue with our own soul and heart again. It opens that up again versus pushing through so fast, like you said, where we lose touch with what's right.
Yeah, what feels right, what matters. I missed what question. Could you repeat the question? You said when you ask that question.
Oh, when you ask the question of why am I, because kids will say, why is the sky blue? Why is this?
Okay, the why.
It's that just wondering, like, why am I feeling anxious right now? Or why do I believe that to be true? That is a question I ask myself quite often. Why do I believe that to be true? And then when you hear that, sometimes they'll be like, well, you learned that in 4th grade. Well, I'm going to be 50. Right? I certainly don't need to follow something that I learned in 4th grade, because your brain is really, really good at spitting out the truth to you. But so often we're like, we don't want to go, that's not the reason. And then we try to rationalize, find a better reason. But more times than not, that first answer,
that simple.
it's it.
I want to challenge you a little bit and hear what you
Okay.
think
I
about
love
this
that.
because I'm not a fan of the why question
Right.
because why can take you down different avenues.
Right.
Why can take you down blame or make you feel shame or, you know what I mean? Like, why
Right.
happened? Why me? It's great when you want to catch a purpose. My question is like, how do you ask yourself why so it doesn't become like that type of, if I asked you, why did you do that? You might get defensive and be like, well, because blah, blah, blah. I like what questions or like what's happening here or
Right.
how did we get here? Walk me through how you ask that question so it doesn't turn into like a negative or a negative impact.
Right. No, and I love that you asked that because I think it's true. I think you can go down a line of questioning and it can go negative. It's being gentle with yourself. Like you said, it can lead to shame. Then it would be, well, why am I feeling shame? What is it
Mhm.
about that? And then keeping the question, the dialogue going versus, okay, now I'm feeling shame. I'm looking for something to blame. It's more of opening up the dialogue in the wondering. You're right. It could very well be what or how or all those adverbs that we learned about.
Right.
It's more of being willing to listen. And
Yeah.
I really believe that a lot of us, at least for me, growing up in the 80s and all that, it was such a fast track. You do this and then it'll be equal A, you do A, it'll equal B, and B, and it'll equal C. And then we get to these lives and we do A and we do B and we do all the steps and it looks nothing like what we thought. Or we get to the what we thought it should be and we're like, well, this isn't making me happy. And it's being willing to go, okay, well, let's explore that, understand it without judgment. I
Right.
really, really believe we're our worst critics. We
Yeah.
judge, oh, I'm feeling shame or I'm feeling embarrassment or all of that. Instead of, okay, so I tell myself, all right, I'm feeling shame. What
You're
is it? Why
human.
am I? Yeah, why? What is it? And then
Right.
trying to understand the root of it. And so often it's something that, okay, can I survive doing this? Because I don't
Mhm.
want to wear that cloak of shame. I don't need
Right.
it anymore.
Hear what you're saying. If I might pull out
Yep.
that it's the state, the reason it works for how you're doing it and how people need to do it when they want to see success in it is what you said in the beginning. It's coming from that state of wonder. If
Yes.
you're in the state of wonder, then you're curious and you're diving deeper and you're using it for awareness. That's what clicked for me as you were talking is that it must be in that state of wonder. That's something we probably have to check with ourselves to sure we're in that state.
Right. Because it can be easy to just go down that path and spiral into other emotions. But
Because you suck, because
right. Because you're the worst.
Yeah.
How come you didn't do that answer? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like every time I leave a conversation, why didn't I say that or all of that? But that doesn't help when you're in that cycle of it. But that for me, you have the reset. For me, it's a pause. And I highly recommend it. I'm feeling that negative emotion, whatever the emotion is that would lead to the wonder. And I actually physically will have to okay, I'm going to take that breath. I'm going to release what I don't need to have. And I'm going to do that until I'm not so triggered or charged. And sometimes it takes a long time, or sometimes it takes me running and doing all of that. But until I can get to that spot where the internal emotion is more neutral, it's very hard to start doing the wondering because all of those other emotions are too high at that point. I know that it needs to come from a place of more neutrality, but also love for the person that's experiencing that emotion. We're hard. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. Like kind of rebuking of don't be so overly sensitive. Well, it's okay. No. I love you for that response. Let's figure out a better way.
Yeah, I love that. So recognizing that emotion as a trigger and then reducing the intensity of that so we can step into that place of wonder.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We must be writers.
So get back your sparks. What are some tips for somebody? We already got a lot of tips, but what else would you say can help somebody feel alive again?
Well, honestly, we probably all hear this. It's the idea of breaking out of comfortable or stasis, that status quo, just moving through life. When you do something that's out of your comfort zone, it immediately sparks that, oh my gosh, what is that happening? And people will tell me, let's just go back to running. I could never run. I can't run. But they might like to run, but I can't. And they've got a whole list of reasons. I do group sports. I've not done this. Then I'll tell them, what if you just run to your stop sign? Just run there and then call it a day. And then the next day, maybe you run 5 feet beyond that stop sign. And then the next day, maybe another 5 feet. Because after a while, running to the stop sign is not going to be a big deal anymore. It's that getting our spark back. I think that we think it's running the marathon. Once I run the marathon, I've got my spark back. No, 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 no. It's the process. It's that whole journey of, wow, I ran to the stop sign today, and then feeling great, celebrating it, coming home, being like, I ran to the stop sign. Like I did it. And allowing ourselves to celebrate the small wins. Because I tell people all the time, the only reason you and I, or people that have moments that get to talk about it, is because we dared to start. We dared to have the moment where we're like, I don't know how this is going to end, but I'm going to try. And it's the process of trying that was where your spark comes back and ignites, and you get to build it. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect. It's ups and downs and starting again. And yeah, it's living that I'm going to try my best today. I'm going to live fully alive, that allows it to return.
What's your favorite response that somebody's had after reading the book?
I just got one. It actually makes me get very emotional about it. It's people that try things again. It was a friend of ours that had read the book, and she decided she was going to go golfing with her husband, and she hadn't golfed in 20 years. And she was out there. And one of the things I talk about is you need to allow yourself to be a beginner. Being a beginner when you're older, it's tricky. It's trickier because you think I should have it all together. There's a 13-year-old that's doing this perfectly. And so she said she got out there, and immediately all the voices came in. Who do you think you are? You're going to look like a fool. You're going to look like an idiot. All those things. You're not even going to hit the ball. And they were so loud, she wanted to stop. And then she said, I remembered the part where you talked about clearing the residue and being a beginner and giving yourself the grace to show up and try. So she said, screw it. I'm going to try. I'm going to do this. And she said it was the best day ever. It was amazing because she felt so alive. Like she got over that little hurdle. And that's what makes me the most excited, are all of these women and people saying, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to try it. And then in that trying, it's when they start to feel that that energy, that excitement again.
That's great.
Yeah, I loved it.
What didn't I ask you yet that you really want to share?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that I talk about this often about, especially as women, we live in a time that was with the internet where we can really support each other. And I look back and I love this opportunity, like you and I are getting to dialogue and talk. And I think for most of history, women have fought and fought and fought for us to be able to have this type of voice, to be able to share and to do this. And one of the things I believe the most strongly in is supporting other women and loving them and showing up and supporting people in that way and collaborating, and that we're stronger when we're together. And I just consider it a complete honor to get to be able to talk and to share on the internet and to have this voice. And what an honor it is to the generations of women that have fought for this very spot that we're in.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure people feel honored to be a part of your group because you're so authentic and real and you're sharing and it's making a difference for them.
I absolutely love the space online that I've created. I call it a sacred space because it's to be a place where we can show up at the table together. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can show up and have a dialogue and be respectful and encourage each other to pursue each of our stories, because each of our stories looks so different and it doesn't need to be the same to be wonderful. And it's loving each other in the process.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that it's so important now more than ever that we truly connect, right? Not just connect online and hit like but that we truly are making deeper connections. And you can do that online. I've coached people for years without ever having seen them.
Right.
And we created a deeper relationship. It's about what you talk about, right? And seeing each other and really listening.
Absolutely. It's taking that moment. I know that for everybody that responds, and I can't respond to everybody, but I do know that they are taking a bit of their time, of their day to respond to me. And I'm very grateful for that. I recognize they're going through their day, and for them to pause and say, I'm really grateful for what you've written, or thank you very much. I try to respond and to express gratitude back, because without it, it's just a one-way street. It's just me talking. And I wanted to create this community where we could say, hey, I'm here for you and I'm here for each other. And that for me has been the coolest part about actually doing this book tour is getting to meet so many people and in real life who I feel like I've known for years.
Yeah, that's very cool. To a close, I ask a lot of guests this question. I've just released the book, The Reset Mindset. And I know you don't know what it is, but maybe from the name, it gives you an idea. I always ask, how would you define a reset mindset from your perspective and your history? And why is it important today more than ever?
That is a very good question. For me, a reset would be, I think back to like when my computer would freeze up and I'd have to do a reset on it, and it clears the cache, clears the memory, clears it all. And it's still the same structure, but it gives me a moment to decide what tabs, what I need to open and what I need on my screen. And for me, a reset, it doesn't mean wiping everything out. It means it's being intentional, pressing the button, letting myself catch my breath, and then decide, what do I need to have? What do I need to bring with me? What do I need to adjust? And what do I need to let go of?
That's beautiful. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said the let go piece, because I find that to be the most important part of resiliency. That's the most challenging part, is the letting go. Because if we carry everything with us, yeah, we might be moving through it, but it's hard and it's heavy and it keeps pulling us back at times, right? That's why I love that word, that it really comes with the letting go. Like you said, what can we let go? Before we get off, I think you have something else to say, and then I have one more question to ask you around that.
Yeah, I'm ready for your question.
Okay. I thought maybe you had something.
Oh, no, I'm anticipating.
Do you have a technique or a way that helps you to let go?
I do, actually. I love the idea of, I think sometimes we get let go. We don't know exactly what it means. We think, okay, if I let go of it, I'm never, ever going to have to deal with it again. And there's a lot of stuff in our lives that we have that we can let go of. We're not just pushing it out of for our future vision. We're just deciding, I don't need that book open right now from it. And the technique for me is, I talk about, if time was a timeline that we could see in our heads and the future was in your right hand and the past was in your left, there are certain things in our life that happen in the past that a lot of us see all the time. It's always there. And we're seeing it through that filter. Letting go means saying, in some ways, I am going to be brave enough to not have to see this with that intensity today. I'm going to put it on a shelf in front of my timeline. Doesn't mean that I'm ignoring it. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's that I'm choosing today to not allow the intensity of the emotion to dictate what I do next. And that has been the way that I have learned to let go. Some stuff, yeah, I can just push it back in the timeline. But there's other stuff that I got divorced. I can't erase that. That's part of the story, but I don't need to feel the angst of it every day. I can set it down. That's the way I visualize it.
Yeah, they're very similar to the way that I see it as well, is when we can detach the emotion from the event. The event happened, like you said, the event happened. We can't change history, but we can detach that intensity, like you said, that emotion, that when we think of it, we're not in tears, in a bucket of tears every time that we think of it, I believe that when we get the lesson out of it, that helps us to detach and helps us to give it new meaning and to move on from it.
I strongly believe in that. And I believe that the other thing is you and I and everybody has a different timeline for how long it takes to get to that spot. And it's giving each other grace for their timeline to get to that spot too, because sometimes on the outside, I'd be like, oh my goodness, but you're still in that spot. But when I'm in that spot, I'm like, you know what? I need to process. And one of the things I think is a beautiful gift as humans is the respect of knowing that everybody's timeline for letting go and healing it doesn't match. And no one's is right and no one's is perfect. It's loving the person while they're on that journey.
That's awesome. So tell us where we can get a hold of your book and hear more about you and your platforms that you're on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So my book is Get Your Spark Back, and you can get it Amazon or Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, and your independent bookstore. And then where I write is at findingjoy.net. But most people find me on Facebook at Finding Joy Blog. And if you search that, you'll see my face and a little blue check mark that says Facebook has verified me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for being here. If you feel like you've lost that spark, well, this is an opportunity to get that spark back. And maybe you just want to turn up the fire. That's okay too, right? So turn it up, turn it on, and get living. living your best life because this is the only one you've got. And you may have had a lot of things that have happened in your life. Nobody gets to escape things happening, but we do get to choose what we do with it and what we go forward in life to experience and to create. With that, I'll have you reflect on that and what it is that you want to create and what it would take to turn it up or get your spark back. Why don't you get Rachel's book? That's a great start, and join her communities. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.